Hi, everybody. Wow. We are live from
VMware
Explorer here in lovely Las Vegas, which means the plains.
Yes, and we're in the Venetian.
Yeah.
So it's quite nice. Almost can see the sphere.
Yeah. So we're in the Venetian, which is modeled roughly after what I imagine somebody with enough hallucinogens would imagine Venice to be like. But having just been in Venice, I can tell you the Venetian is bigger than Venice. Or almost. Venice is really, really, really different than this place. The one thing in common that I've noticed, besides that both places start with the letter V, is that there's no roads inside the Venetian. No cars, and there are no roads in Venice either. So you walk. Everybody has to walk. Outside that,
I haven't been there. That'd be really cool to see.
It's cool. There's no cars in the city. You have to take a gondola, or you have to walk. And gondolas are like tourist traps, so people just walk. It was really great. It's because when you go to a normal city, even cities that are like really, eco-friendly, green, foot traffic friendly, there's still cars, so you can't completely zone out, right? You don't realize it. You do it. We just do it subconsciously. We always look both ways when we cross the street because we might get the worst experience ever, right? And you don't have to do that. I mean, if anything, you need to make sure you don't fall into the canals, But basically, as long as you're pointed in the right direction, you're not going to have that issue in Venice. It's really streamlined. So as a result, not only are you going there as fast as your little feet will carry you, but you're going there without any friction. So it feels very productive.
Wow.
Because there's no stopping, there's no stoplights. I'm not sharing the road with anybody besides other people, and we all know how to do that pretty quickly. I don't need the horn. I love that friction-free experience to getting somewhere, and that reminds me of today's topic, which is how do I get my apps to production without friction? Right?
Very good.
Right? I worked on that. You thought you didn't know what I was going to say, but you figured it out. We're joined by the one, the only, the amazing, the inimitable Chris Sterling. You've been on that show before.
I haven't actually.
You have not?
No.
You sure?
It's first time. Yeah.
No, but the podcast even, or just this?
Neither of them. I don't think.
I have myself.
I've definitely been a listener and viewer, and yeah.
Well, okay. Well, welcome. I'm glad you're here. I'm really, and if we are in a relatively quiet area, it might get super loud. We kind of secreted away and found like a little area we could have a conversation, but we are in the middle of a casino / resort /
yeah, for sure,
conference venue, expo hall thing. Anyway, you're Chris. You work on the we've got Spring. Spring is great, but it's infinite in its configurability and wisdom and opportunity. But at some point, I just want to push a button and get the 80% stuff.
Handle all the enterprise stuff, right? All the things that maybe you don't want to take care of and code all the time. You want to focus on features and function. Yeah, and so just a background for me, I've been a Spring developer since very early days of Spring.
Yeah.
And then at some point I came on at Pivotal, and now on the way to Broadcom. Came on to work with the Spring team. Via VMware, yeah, exactly. And then we turned my development background into something where I do product management now. And so my focus is how you take the open source, what we provide out of open source, and then make sure that Spring ecosystem works very well on Tanzu platform. But not only that, but what are the other things that you need from the enterprise standpoint, like continuous security, continuous compliance, continuous upgrades? What are the things that you need? And so that's kind of my focus area right now, along with Spring Cloud.
Right. So we used to call it Spring Cloud Services, that particular tranche of your work. Is that still the name, or is it different now? Or
so there's quite a few things in Spring Cloud. So we have the Spring Cloud Services was a tile that you would manage on top of what we call now Tanzu Platform for Cloud Foundry. It used to be called Pivotal Cloud Foundry. So you might know it by many different names.
What is a tile?
So a tile was this way to create a service inside of Cloud Foundry that you could create new service instances from and bind to your application. In this case, Spring Cloud Services was config server and service registry. So if you ever done Eureka or something like that.
Which is also, so there's the open source. Okay, I got so many threads here. Let me join.
Pull together.
So tile is like a service broker plus the bits to deploy the service broker. Does that feel right?
Yeah, it actually generates a virtual machine in the background. runs the broker on it, along with a couple other services. We actually have a mirroring service for your Git repos for the config servers. And that will make sure that you don't have any downtime. Let's say if you lose connectivity to your Git servers that are backing your config server implementations, your instances, it'll still work because it's all on platform.
Okay. And so this is a thing that's you're deploying parts of the platform as opposed to deploying on top of the platform. So it's a slightly different life cycle, but the ideas of like no downtime deployment and rollbacks are kind of built into that works like life cycle.
We handle all the day two stuff, so it always keeps running. We actually deploy for every single service instance. We actually deploy an backing application that can scale horizontally as well. So you can decide, I need a config server, but I want HA mode. So I want 2 different instances running at the same time, and they're pointing at the same Git repo and providing those.
And the things you just talked about, some of the things that you support deployment are some of the things that we have in the open source Spring ecosystem, Spring Cloud config server.
Mm-hmm.
We have the service registry, which is underneath the hood, I think.
Spring Cloud Service Registry. Yeah.
Is that ultimately based on Eureka?
Well, there's multiple implementation, but one of them is Eureka, console. There are a few others, but ours is based on Eureka.
Nice. Okay. And so these are all things that, again, in theory, you could just go get the open source bits and deploy them, but then you've got to figure out security, you got to figure out HA, you got to figure out updates and rollbacks, you got to figure out multi-availability zones, which is a whole other kettle of fish or ball of wax. Mm-hmm. You've got SSO. I think we just talked about that.
Single sign-on. That's pretty much one of the really cool things is that there's actually a client library called Spring Cloud Services Starter. And with that, if you put that in your application and you're on Cloud Foundry and then you use the Spring Cloud Services, it will automatically go to what's called UAA, which is kind of the identity provider on Cloud Foundry, get a new client ID and secret. It does that whole flow, the OAuth flow for you. And then it uses those credentials and binds them to your application. And that's how you communicate from your client application to the config server. And so it secures that whole communication path, all on TLS as well. And then on the other cool thing about that is that every application now has their own client ID and credentials, and we can kind of tell who's all bound to this.
Metering.
Yes.
So you can have one instance, but you can dole out claims to it, sort of.
Exactly.
Via this client ID. It's like an OAuth. Is it OAuth?
It is like OAuth.
Okay,
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So I have to sneeze.
Go ahead.
Excuse me.
All right.
Anyway, so you've got this ability to do metering. You have visibility into who's using what, and you can scale out accordingly as well, right? Each time a client connects, the service can look at that. Is it automatic, or can you just go in there and do CF +1?
It's pretty much you add the count. And usually with these, you don't really have to scale them automatically like auto scaling. Many times you say, I just need 2 of them, so I have an HA. High availability.
Right.
But then with service registry, one of the other cool things is say you have 2 different environments, one in AZ1 and AZ2. You can have service registry in each one of those with the same services running, right?
Right.
And they are all registered with that, the service registry in their AZ.
Wait, so you've got like a tree of service registries?
And then you can actually peer replicate between them. And you can say, there's also the services over there and the services over here. So you can do bidirectional of the service locations.
So do you call that the service registry? Registry.
That's very nice.
Yeah, you missed out, right?
Yeah, we really missed out on that one.
I'm just full of this stuff.
We call it peer replication, which is not as fun. So anyways, the cool thing about that is if you're a client on one of these AZs, so I could be talking to service instances that are on my AZ.
Yeah.
But if all those go down, it'll actually allow me to go and call the services are running on the other AZ.
And it's completely transparent to the client. They just know that they're connecting. So is there a way to enforce that the service registry dole out the more proximal instances first, and if there's none available, then only then do they deliver the more latent but still available remote services? Is that in the algorithm?
They do, yeah. So Spring Cloud Eureka allows you to do what's called metadata. So on my service instance, I can say, hey, I am part of group AZ1. And then all of the client apps are saying, hey, I'm a service. and they register themselves with it, they would say, hey, I'm part of AZ1. And then as a client that wants to call one of the other services, I go, hey, only give me the ones that are in AZ1. And so I'll client side load balance only to the instances that are in my proximity.
That's amazing.
Mhm.
So how does it know what is it just like here or there, or is it like here, closer, not so close?
Well, usually it's either here or anywhere else, not
Right.
anywhere else.
Right, just not here.
Right.
Here or
Yeah.
not here. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the idea is that a lot of our customers, what they want to be able to do is fail over into the other AZ if they need to.
Okay. That makes sense. That's so cool. I didn't know we had that. That's like really cool.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense, right?
And we've had it for what?
Don't say-
2015.
This is embarrassing. Don't say that.
Well, we've always made it better every year, but yeah.
I knew we had Spring Cloud. I mean, I knew you could like do things with the algorithm there, the heuristics, and I know a lot of organizations, they want exactly what you just described.
Mm-hmm.
And also they don't want to do it. I mean, they want to implement it. They want to use somebody else's thing, but they don't want to because that's not what we're getting paid for. I got to get this thing to production so my customers are happy.
Yeah.
They don't care how I resolve the request, or route it and resolve it,
Yeah, and that's kind of the idea here. Spring Cloud was really to provide the application infrastructure so you don't have to think about it. And it does a lot of things in the cloud that you expect to have out of a cloud for your applications without you having to do too much. So you can focus on your business logic. And the other one that we have as a tile on Tanzu platform for Cloud Foundry is Spring Cloud Gateway.
Which is my personal, by the way, you're talking about the reactive one.
It's a reactive implementation, yes.
One of my favorite projects ever, because it's just so, I mean, who doesn't need this?
Yeah.
Who doesn't? Even if you're not a Spring developer, if you want an easy gateway, you can learn 3 lines of code and get something, and then write some YAML in worst case.
Yeah.
Even if you're not a Java dev.
One of the cool things that we do, so our implementation goes a little bit beyond what the open source project does. Obviously does all the security, right? So we have a bunch of commercial filters. And so one of those are single sign-on. So you can say, hey, make my API route have to be authenticated. And then you can say also based on a role, you only have access if you're in these roles in this list of a claim. And then in a JOT claim. And then you might have also scopes that you want to push to the user and say, do you give me access to these scopes?
Yeah.
So it totally does the OpenID Connect integration.
So the OpenID Connect, so every time you do that, are you validating the token for every single request that goes to the gateway, or is there some way to cache that on the?
Yeah. So once you authenticate, of course, it's in session. We never share that information out.
Right.
And so we have an authentication token in session on the Spring Cloud Gateway implementation.
Right. So the OIDC client is acting. It's acting as an OIDC client. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
And that's really, so you've got, and then when you say authenticate, you're not, you're talking about, you can redirect them to some place to do the actual login. Where is that? Does that live on the?
You can have it anywhere. So you can hook it to Okta. You can hook it to
Auth0,
Active Directory. Yeah, all of those things.
And that's just OAuth. So like all these things will support it.
Yeah. The nice thing is OAuth was a standard, although there were some like variations depending upon who you were using, because it allowed for a little bit of leeway. OpenID Connect was much more, I guess, focused. Yeah. And so definitely the standard is much stronger, and we're able to do a lot more automatically for you on your behalf. Right. And then we also have a translation layer, a single sign-on tile that will translate to any of those other ones that don't do OpenID Connect. So if you're doing LDAP, it'll translate from OpenID Connect to LDAP. So it becomes our proxy.
When did that become available?
2015.
No. Wait, so wait, for real? Like you can, is that a thing? So let me just see it. Let me just guess. So you're saying you can LDAP is a directory. You can store username and it can store user information.
Roles and all kinds of information.
It's a built-in phone book, but it doesn't speak OAuth. So you're saying you have a thing that will speak OAuth as an OAuth resource, I guess, and then you make a request to it, and then it in turn translates that into a token based on LDAP. The users that it finds in there. Because Spring Security has direct Spring Security LDAP. You can use that as a place to discover user.
Right. So the single sign-on tile
principles
is based on UAA. So that thing that we talked about, the identity provider on Cloud Foundry.
Yeah.
It manages that interaction there, but it first validates that you are an appropriate user from LDAP. And then you can also configure it to say, hey, you make what's called a plan.
Mhm.
And the plan says, hey, what information do you want from LDAP after you authenticate for this user and how to populate it? And that comes in the claim.
You get the attributes as part of the claims in the token. Oh man, that is sick. That's really cool. I didn't know we had that. So is there like, so I mean, Active Directory can speak, but it doesn't necessarily speak. It can speak OAuth, but it can also speak LDAP, right? So you could do both, I guess, for that one.
Exactly.
I guess, is that the biggest one for our, because I mean, it's the enterprise, right? It's like every organization.
We also have SAML. So SAML is one of those which I don't even think we can. I won't go into detail.
No, there's young children.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Probably. Anyway, so yeah, it also, you can translate SAML into OpenID Connect or OAuth.
Is that even possible in the open source world, or is that like a major?
It is definitely. It's not something that you want to play with. Probably.
I've never successfully implemented SAML.
I don't think I have either, but
I don't know.
Fortunately, we have these really smart people on our team that actually do this.
We had I don't know, is it gone? We used to have a Spring Security SAML project, but
no, it's
still there. Okay, wow. I mean, that is no. I can barely get my head wrapped around OAuth, right, and OIDC.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So yeah, the SAML stuff always kind of scared me. Okay, so that's good. So and I know.
There's one more.
Oh no.
Spring Cloud Data Flow. There's another one.
Wait, so what is it? We talked about the Spring Cloud services bits. We talked about the gateway stuff.
And Spring Cloud
Data Flow. The third tranche is the data flow stuff. Okay. And so data flow, open source project, but what is the thing you're enterprising?
Yeah, so we actually run it on Kubernetes. And by the way, Spring Cloud Services also runs on Kubernetes. So we talked about a lot of this on Cloud Foundry, but we also run on Kubernetes. Same thing with Gateway. We have another Kubernetes option. It has a Kubernetes operator, feels all Kubernetes native.
The equivalent of like a tile.
Spring Cloud Data Flow actually was the first one to go to Kubernetes as well.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah. So we had a tile and we have Kubernetes. So the tile for Cloud Foundry and the Kubernetes operator. And what's cool about it is it'll automatically launch apps for you. It has this thing called Spring Cloud Deployer.
Right.
And it will just, you say, okay, I'm going to create a stream. It's going to ingest some information off an HTTP endpoint. It's going to transform it using some cool transformation process, and then it's going to sync it over to Cassandra, right? That would be an example of a stream. And then what's cool about that is now all of a sudden you say, apply that to the service, the Spring Cloud Data Flow service, and it goes and when the HTTP request comes in, it'll launch the streams as microservices on the platform, Kubernetes or Cloud Foundry, as app instances, and then it will have one that's doing the ingestion, one that's doing the transformation, and one that's doing the syncing.
So, but then when it's done, scale it back down.
Go back down, or scale up if you have a big transformation that needs to scale out.
That's what I love about this is, at first blush, when I first heard about this scheme, I thought, a lot of moving parts. But first of all, there's durable state that manages like the workflow, basically the handoff between each of these running processes. Second of all, the longer a piece of code runs, the more surface area it has for failure. And the bigger the code base, the more surface area it has for failure. So paradoxically, by having a bunch of small things that shut down pretty quickly, you increase resilience.
Yeah, exactly.
Because if there's a faulty component, it's going to be gone in a few minutes anyway.
Well,
it'll get restarted next time.
Even more than that, right? So you increase your resilience also by using a messaging platform,
right? Which stores your buffers.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what you're pointing at. Yeah. So the nice thing about that is that's all handled underneath the covers for you. As all as you focus on is the transformation itself or the ingestion part. Let's say you're ingesting, from an FTP endpoint.
What about the Amazon stuff? Can I do that?
Oh yeah, S3. So something pops onto an S3 bucket. Decide to do something about it.
And I don't care when that happens or how. I just want to get notified. I want to be told, hey, there's this new thing. Here it is. Do something with it.
And so then there's also cool dashboards and everything that you get with this when you run it on platform. And not only that, you can, from a single Spring Cloud Data Flow instance, you can target multiple clusters or multiple Cloud Foundry foundations for running those workloads. So you can actually spread it out.
Can I do both, like Kubernetes and Cloud Foundry? Can they share
you can.
tasks and stuff? Or
well, I don't know if they share. They would.
Or like, can I have a source over here and a stream over there? I don't know.
Probably not.
Okay, I don't know.
I'm sure that is possible, but I don't think you want to.
No. I mean, I don't know. Because it is. We've got a a central but not singular admin that's keeping track of all the moving parts.
So
right?
you can run a streaming pipeline over here, and then another streaming pipeline over there. So
Right.
it could be one on a foundation, one on a Kubernetes cluster, one on another Kubernetes cluster.
Right.
But
that's so cool.
but it's not that you would run the stream across clusters or something.
Right.
Yeah.
That's so cool. And so underneath the hood, you can write tasks and you can write streams. But that's all open source, basically.
Yeah.
So all that sounds really great. What's the hard part, I think, is first of all getting it stood up in such a way that it automatically integrates with the underlying cloud fabric, and then the control plane on top of that, and then also the security, right? I mean,
there's a lot of security, so we hooked it into UAA. We did all of the token management for you. We also, all the TLS under the covers automatically. On top of that, there's some additional dashboard views and observability tools that you get.
The observability stuff is dynamite. Like that is so important.
Well, when you're running
So
something that's
important.
so dynamic like this, you have to have
Single pane of
observability.
glass, right?
Mhm.
You got to have that. So first of all, we were just in we're at VMworld, but we're also at Spring One. That's the important bit, right? They're Spring One or Spring One Spot or Spring Spot. I don't know.
Spring One.
Spring One. Yeah. By the way, you can go watch the live stream, spring1.io. And I think there's a schedule there, and you can join the live stream. And there's also a Discord you can join. That's happening right now. I don't know why you're watching this. What are you doing? You made the wrong decision. But
Lots of great talks.
Yeah, there are lots of great talks. And but you and I had the esteemed privilege of being in this keynote session this morning with you. That was an honor for me, and I got to watch you and Deshaun just absolutely crush it. And you talked about observability, right? Like and also Dr. Pollock and I talked about AI. So the new thing in
that was really
Spring
cool.
AI is the new observability stuff. So now you can know how many tokens you're spending for every single request.
Yeah,
can tell you. Don't want to bankrupt yourself, It
was really cool. What was really cool about that is you brought not only that was Spring Modulith.
Yes, so good.
So when you're trying to apply design patterns, I know a lot of us, we talk about microservices, and we've been big proponents of microservices. But at the same time, when you're first starting out with an app, going right to microservices might not be the right choice.
Premature optimization, or de-optimization.
I always have this saying. I actually wrote a book, by the way. I don't know if you know, Managing Software Debt.
Ooh.
And back in those days, I actually used to say, I learned this from many, many different projects, is that you get it right around the third time.
Yeah, throw 2 away.
Yeah, throw it to your way. Yeah, there it is. And so
look at that.
One of the cool things I think is that when you start out with a modulith, at least you have all these separation of concerns across your modules. And that at some point, if it makes sense, you can break out something that may need to scale differently, may need to interact with a different data source or whatever it might be, and you can have that separated out.
Yeah, so you want to tease out to, oh, look at that.
Oh, hey.
Hi, our friend. Glad you're watching. So you want to tease these things out as it becomes viable to do so, but no sooner, right?
That's right.
Okay. And so yeah, the modular talk was super good because it helps keep you in the rails. I hate to use that term after that Dane co-opted the whole term, but you want to have something that helps you keep you structurally sound, so that if you ever decided to sort of scale out part or strangle the monolith and keep part of it out in a separate service, it would be trivial to do so. You could just take that package, drop it into a new Java jar project in Spring,
exactly,
and then just start that. Now it's just a matter of remoting. It's kind of like the Erlang OT.
Well, then you use the Spring Cloud components to make everything just work.
Yes, exactly. And so this gets us into. But I love that stuff, and there's great observability support there, right, as well. There's also the observability stuff in Spring AI. You talked about observability this morning.
Yeah, so in Tanzu platform, by the way, one of the things that is so powerful in Spring Boot that doesn't get talked about probably enough is the ability to have what are called actuators on your app. And there are so many different types of actuators, right? There's the ones that are more informational, the info one. It might even tell you what your Git, the current Git commit hash was for the one for the build that you just made in your jar. It might be the health indicators or liveness probes. You might also have metrics, which is when you go to observability.
Right.
So from a metric standpoint, once you get that exposed, you can hook it up to any number of observability tools,
Right.
Prometheus and Grafana, or Datadog, or Tanzu platform. So in Tanzu platform, one of the things it does is it does what's called Spring App Discovery. So it can look at your VMware Cloud Foundation, so all your vSpheres endpoints. It could look at your whole environment and find Spring apps that are running there.
What?
It'll find apps running on Cloud Foundry.
You're saying we can actually just sort of auto incorporate all the stuff into one?
Yeah, there's tools that go out and
observability plane?
search and discovery and sucks it all in and makes a visibility
This is the
on
benefit.
Tanzu platform.
This is why it's great to have a single platform, because it's now you got a unified world view of the system. Oh, that's so cool.
Kate's clusters, all of that information gets sucked in. Now you see, I have these apps running in these different environments. And then not only that, you go to the performance tab, and all of a sudden, if you have the metrics actuator on, it starts showing you different information, like how fast your app responding to requests, or what's your JVM heap, or all these different endpoints are available on actuators.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Yeah, and then I kind of think of those as some that operationally we don't see enough of in a lot of these environments. So if you have Spring Boot apps, what we're doing in, I think, Spring Boot 3.4, we're looking into a new feature, which is going to enable your own security model around those actuators. So you can already secure the actuators, but now we'll be able to make it even easier to make your own security model that meets your governance standards within your enterprise.
Is that like declarative? Is it like a YAML file or a WYSIWYG config GUI? Or
it's code. So you can
Oh,
code it if you want. We'll probably provide a few of them in our Spring Boot extensions, and then we'll have quite a few of them covered. But then you might have your own real special sauce, right? And if you're in a highly regulated environment, you might have processes and governance policies that you have to meet.
Okay. This sounds great. This is the kind of stuff I want. And I don't know, where do we send people to go?
Actually, one more thing.
Okay, it's like Steve Jobs.
This is one more thing. So we did start on Spring AI.
Okay.
So I do want to give a big shout out on that one. Like Dr. Mark Pollack has been doing amazing. Christian well.
Solaf, yeah.
Oh man.
The goats.
So if you have not checked out Spring AI, you got it. One of the things is I've been in this AI stuff for a little while.
Yeah.
Myself, doing different projects, but obviously with Gen AI coming out, it kind of changed the whole game, and it kind of made it something that's very approachable for well beyond the data scientist, right?
Yeah.
So now all of a sudden, as a developer, these large language models, they have their key attributes, the things that they do best, right? And you want to be able to use and leverage all of them. And if you've thought about like Spring Data, what it did for relational databases, I can have one place to configure that, and I could use any number of databases, H2, MySQL,
you opt in via
Postgres.
or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't have to change my code. Well, think about that. Well,
with Spring Data, you like Redis and MongoDB, you do, but
that's a relational data.
Oh, relational. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, I know. There's other variations, and of course, you're going to extend that for AI too, I'm sure. But in Spring AI, you can kind of abstract that all the way as well. Right. So all of a sudden, you can actually use any of these LLMs. Most of them are going towards an OpenAI kind of API.
Yeah, like this new S3.
Exactly.
The protocol of the vendor.
Exactly. It's expanding out. So then on top of that, you all of a sudden have these other tools coming alongside it to be able to evaluate and create safety around the responses.
That's the hardest part. That's the big push in Spring AI, right? That's what we saw in the keynote this morning. Is that where you were going to go? Did I just cut the wind out of your...
No, that's exactly. I think that we really need to understand that, you can make it work, but when you come to the enterprise with AI, you're going to also have to evaluate it. You're going to have to make sure it's safe. And and you're also going to have to make it scale. You're going to have to make it work across different LLMs over time.
That's the other thing is I think so we're in Vegas, Las Vegas, which means the plains, and also I think secretly our friend Dan Vega is actually Dan Diego de la Vega, El Zorro. I know in the stories it's Don.
I thought you were going to go Princess Bride in that one, but
no. It's Don Diego de la Vega, but maybe it's Dan. Maybe they just misprinted it, and it's actually Dan Vega, and he is the famed masked vigilante, as well as a Spring developer advocate extraordinaire. But anyway, we're in Vegas, and Vegas, it turns out, in the United States. And so here, I think a lot of people are pretty happy. Not everybody, certainly not the financial industry. Anybody dealing with very, very important personal information, they're pretty happy to do something with OpenAI or Gemini or whatever. But if you're running in like Europe, certainly Western Europe, that's not going to work, right?
Yeah.
You've got privacy concerns to go. Like you need something else, and this is where I think Spring AI is really great. Prototype,
cost management,
yeah,
PII scrubbing, like personal information.
Yeah,
all of this stuff is something that we want to tackle. And Spring AI is going to have all the interfaces for that, but we also, within Tanzu, you can imagine we're going to provide services that make that really easy.
Yeah, exactly. This is so, and it's in the end. So you start with Spring AI today. I think a lot of us are going to probably start with OpenAI because it's just the most obvious one at the moment. Although that's certainly a Claude looks amazing. Gemini looks amazing.
Some of these enterprise apps, a lot of these bigger customers, they will not let you even go out to the internet for these things.
Yeah.
So you have to run your old Llama inside or something like that.
Right. And a Llama is great too. I love a Llama. Really does a great job. You can do, I don't know, certainly for everything I've tried, it seems just as good as anything else,
Mm-hmm.
But even there, I noticed, so we have Azure, our friends over at Microsoft, they have a Azure OpenAI, which is OpenAI,
Yep.
But it's metered within your Azure cost center, right? So a lot of people are used to paying for Azure. Now it's just another thing they can add to their existing bill, right?
Yep.
And I think that having that kind
your
of
subscription units towards one of these services
Right.
managed for you.
So it is OpenAI, but it's now within the firewall. I can use it in my organization. So there's that. So but it's not the same API. That's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Azure OpenAI is not the same as OpenAI. It's Azure API.
Yep.
Versus different. So even that, having the ability to start with one, like maybe you have an idea, you scratch the itch at home, and you're like, oh, okay, this is pretty cool. I'll take it to management and see if we can do a POC or something on it, and it's like, oops, that whole thing's, I can't use it in the organization. I literally can't connect to it. Okay, no problem. Having the ability to run a Llama or do something like that, within a metered cost center is really, really important. And Spring AI makes that portability seamless.
And not only that, the other part of it is how do you ingest all the information that you have internally, like the APIs and documentation and all that stuff,
right?
Suck it into a vector database. We can help with that too.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like Spring AI really provides that abstraction layer over all of these pieces.
And we've talked about it in the keynote this morning, connecting your data and your APIs. Where's your data? How are you talking to your data right now? I bet Spring's involved.
Yep.
How are you building your APIs? I'll bet Spring's involved. Well, good news. All that is now reusable as functions. And with RAG, through Spring AI,
And so now you tie all this up with a bow.
Yeah.
You got Spring Cloud Data Flow, which is processing data and streaming pipelines. You got potentially that ingestion into a Spring AI, right? Available models and ancillary information that it can provide answers about.
Right.
And then on top of that, you can actually have your application running in a cloud environment with Spring Cloud components and the application infrastructure.
Yeah.
Right. And then you can have it fronted with Spring Cloud Gateway in order for you to have high throughput and also dynamic routing.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
That sounds like production, actually. It sounds great to me. That's that what you just described is all the moving parts that I need for a modern piece of software today.
Yeah, definitely. And we didn't even talk about the single sign-on that you put on that as well.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm imagining for a lot of that stack that I'm just gonna. What did we used to say? Don't pay for what you can. No, don't pay. Don't run what you can't charge for, right? Something like that, right? If you can't charge your customer for it, you shouldn't be building it, right?
That's right.
I'm all about that. I live by that,
Yeah.
And Now, where do people go? I mean, Spring1.io, go there now, but after that.
Yeah, I mean, if you're interested in Tanzu Spring, go to enterprise.spring.io. Enterprise.spring.io is a great place to start. Then, you might also check out Tanzu Spring, and you'll be able to see a lot more.
Enterprise.spring.io, putting that right here. Okay. And then they can actually get some of that stuff. Is that true? You can still get some of this, Spring.
Yeah, usually it's using the open. Oh, no, it does have. Yeah, Eureka, there it is.
Oh, but is it they are binding for it? Or is that just a regular one?
I'm not sure, actually. I'll have to go check that out.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. Yeah.
There you go, Taz.
Yeah, you can go to, if you type in Taz, TAS, and start.spring.io, you can, you'll get the bindings for some of that stuff. It's just a lot of places you can go. Are you on the internet?
I am.
Do you want to be found?
Sure.
If
yeah.
so, where do they find you?
So actually on Twitter, my tag is CSTERWA, Seasterwa.
Like that?
Yes, that is.
Do-do-do-do-do-do. Oh, wouldn't it be funny if the Wi-Fi, like, petered out right now? I got
Hey,
through
there
the
I
whole
am.
thing. Yeah, oh, that's great. Can I put that in here?
Yeah, definitely.
Share with the crowd.
And I love to talk about software architecture, Spring, even operational application operations. Feel free to talk to me. My background has been all over the place, so
Yeah.
I love to talk about things.
I've been talking to you all day because we've been hanging out in meetings
it's been
and
fun.
customer meetings and the conference and the keynote and the talks and all that. I know you've got to go pretty soon. You've got a talk to do. So I want to thank you for taking your time. Appreciate it. Thanks, everybody. Please do a video about microservice. Yeah. See, they want you to do a video.
That'd be
Oh,
awesome.
wait, maybe that's for me.
I think that's for you.
We should do one together. We should do one.
I would do it
Yeah.
with you. Yeah.
That'd be.
And Rita, say hi to you as well.
Hi, everybody. Okay, this is fun. Thank you, sir.
All right.
Bye,
Have a good
everybody.
one.
Have a good one. Goodbye. Goodbye.